Consistency is boring. That is not a flaw. That is the feature. Systems that work are repetitive. They are predictable. They produce the same output under the same conditions. Consistency removes novelty. It removes excitement. It removes emotional variation. Most people interpret this as failure. They believe progress should feel stimulating. They believe improvement should feel rewarding. That belief is incorrect. Consistency is not designed to motivate. It is designed to stabilize behavior. When behavior stabilizes, results compound. Boredom appears when variation disappears. Variation is what the mind craves. Variation is also what breaks momentum. Consistency replaces choice with repetition. Repetition removes negotiation. Without negotiation, execution continues. This is why consistency feels empty. There is no emotional feedback loop. There is no sense of progress in the moment. The system continues regardless. Most people abandon consistency because it feels inactive. They assume nothing is happening. Something is happening. Consistency is reducing friction. It is training tolerance. It is narrowing acceptable behavior. These changes are not dramatic. They are structural. Structural changes do not announce themselves. They accumulate quietly. Consistency works because it does not rely on stimulation. It functions without engagement. Boredom is the signal. The system is operating correctly. That is the core rule. This problem goes unnoticed because boredom is misinterpreted. Most people associate progress with stimulation. They expect feedback. They expect variation. Consistency removes both. When stimulation disappears, the mind assumes stagnation. It assumes effort is wasted. It assumes adjustment is required. That assumption is incorrect. Consistency does not create noticeable change in short intervals. It produces alignment. Alignment is subtle. The system continues to function quietly. No signals are sent, no alerts appear. Because nothing feels different, attention shifts elsewhere. The absence of emotional response is mistaken for failure. People conclude the method is ineffective. They abandon it. The pattern repeats. Another factor hides the problem. Modern environments reward novelty. Variation is encouraged. Change is praised. Consistency appears unresponsive in comparison. It does not adapt to mood. It does not respond to context. This rigidity is perceived as inefficiency. In reality, it is the mechanism. Consistency works by narrowing options. Narrowed options reduce decision-making. Reduced decisions lower friction. Friction reduction is not felt emotionally. It is measured operationally. Most people do not evaluate systems operationally. They evaluate based on sensation. Sensation is unreliable. Another layer reinforces the blindness. Consistency produces delayed outcomes. Delay weakens perceived causality. When results are not immediate, effort feels disconnected. The link between action and outcome blurs. This creates doubt. Doubt invites variation. Variation disrupts repetition. The system resets. Because consistency fails silently, it is rarely credited. Because inconsistency fails dramatically, it is remembered. This distorts learning. People believe excitement drives progress. They do not observe the structure beneath it. The structure is what matters. Consistency operates beneath attention. What operates beneath attention is ignored. That is why the problem persists. Boredom is mistaken for absence. It is not. It is the condition that allows the system to work.
The misunderstanding is simple. People believe consistency should feel productive. They believe repetition should feel rewarding. It does not. Consistency is not designed to provide feedback. It is designed to remove variability. Most people confuse consistency with intensity. They assume consistent effort requires constant pressure. That assumption is incorrect. Consistency is not about doing more. It is about doing the same actions, under the same conditions, without adjustment. This feels counterintuitive. The mind associates progress with escalation, more effort, more change, more stimulation. Consistency rejects escalation. It enforces minimums. Minimums feel unimpressive. Because minimums do not signal ambition, they are dismissed. People aim for peaks instead. Peaks are visible. They feel meaningful. But peaks are unstable. Another misunderstanding follows. People believe boredom indicates inefficiency. They interpret disengagement as a warning sign. It is not. Boredom indicates the absence of novelty. Novelty is unnecessary for function. Systems do not require interest, they require input. Consistency supplies input reliably. Most people also believe motivation should accompany consistency. They expect alignment between feeling and action. That alignment is optional. Consistency does not wait for readiness. It does not respond to enthusiasm. It proceeds regardless. This detachment is uncomfortable. Discomfort is misread as resistance. Resistance is expected. Consistency removes choice. Choice is where emotion enters. When choice disappears, emotion loses relevance. That loss is mistaken for emptiness. In reality, it is stability. Another error reinforces the misunderstanding. People believe results should confirm the process quickly. When confirmation is delayed, confidence erodes. They adjust prematurely. Adjustment introduces variability. Variability breaks consistency. The system never stabilizes. Consistency is misunderstood because it does not perform. It does not demonstrate progress theatrically. It functions quietly. Function is less visible than effort. Visibility is mistaken for effectiveness. That confusion persists. Consistency appears boring because it is not expressive. Expression is not required. Execution is. That is the misunderstanding.
The system responds to repetition, not intention, not excitement. Repetition defines what is normal. Normal behavior becomes default behavior. Once behavior becomes default, effort decreases. Consistency works by removing evaluation. There is no daily assessment, no comparison, no recalibration. The same input is applied again. This repetition reduces cognitive load. Fewer decisions are required. Fewer decisions reduce friction. Reduced friction increases execution. This process is mechanical. The system does not track motivation. It tracks compliance. If the action is repeated, the system adapts. If it is not repeated, the system resets. Adaptation is gradual. It does not produce noticeable markers. The system recalibrates tolerance. What once felt effortful becomes neutral. Neutral actions do not require motivation. They require continuation. Another mechanism operates simultaneously. Consistency narrows acceptable behavior. Deviation becomes noticeable. When deviation is noticed, correction is easier. The gap is smaller. This prevents collapse. Inconsistent systems experience wide gaps. Wide gaps require force to close. Force relies on motivation. Motivation is unstable. Consistency avoids force. It relies on accumulation. Each repetition reinforces expectation. Expectation shapes identity. Identity stabilizes behavior. Once identity stabilizes, resistance decreases. Lower resistance increases capacity. Capacity allows continuation without strain. This is why consistency feels flat.
There is no emotional escalation, no sense of progress in the moment. Progress occurs at the structural level. Structures do not provide feedback. Another component is delay. The system separates action from reward. This separation removes dependency on outcome. When outcome is irrelevant, execution becomes cleaner. Clean execution compounds. The system also filters noise. Mood fluctuations are ignored. External variation is absorbed. The same behavior occurs regardless. This predictability allows optimization. Optimization increases efficiency without intensity. Intensity is unnecessary. Most systems fail because repetition is interrupted. Interruption prevents adaptation. People intervene too early. They adjust before the system stabilizes. Stabilization requires time. Time requires tolerance. Boredom is the indicator. It signals that novelty has been removed. Without novelty, repetition is possible. Repetition allows the system to settle. Once settled, results begin to appear. Not suddenly, not dramatically, reliably. This is how the system actually works. It does not reward interest, it rewards continuity. Continuity is boring. That is why it works.
This requires restraint. You must stop adjusting when nothing feels wrong. You must stop optimizing for engagement. Consistency requires refusal. Refusal to add variety. Refusal to escalate effort. Refusal to react. You must execute without evaluation. That means no daily assessment, no checking for progress, no measuring how it feels. Feeling is irrelevant. You must accept repetition without feedback. You must continue when interest disappears. Interest will disappear. That is expected. You must treat boredom as confirmation. Confirmation that variation has been removed. Removal is the objective. You must set minimum behavior, not ideal behavior, not peak performance. Minimums are enforceable. Enforcement must be automatic. No debate, no justification. You must remove discretion at the moment of action. Discretion invites negotiation. Negotiation reintroduces variability. Variability breaks consistency. You must allow time to pass without interference. Time is not optional. Adaptation requires duration. Interrupting early resets the system. You must tolerate the delay between action and outcome. That delay will test confidence. Confidence is not required. Continuation is. You must avoid compensating for missed days. Overcorrection destabilizes the pattern. Stability matters more than intensity. You must accept flat weeks, flat months, nothing appearing to happen. Something is happening. You must maintain the same input across changing conditions. Mood will change. Context will shift. Input must remain constant. You must stop expecting consistency to reward you emotionally. It will not. Consistency is indifferent. It does not acknowledge effort. It does not respond to sacrifice. It only responds to repetition. You must become reliable to the system. Reliability removes dependence on motivation. When dependence is removed, execution becomes routine. Routine is the requirement, not belief, not desire. Routine. That is what this requires from you. Over time, consistency alters outcomes structurally, not suddenly, not visibly. Reliability replaces fluctuation. Execution stabilizes. When execution stabilizes, recovery improves. Missed days no longer collapse momentum. The system absorbs disruption. This creates durability. Durability is not intensity. It is continuity over extended periods. As continuity increases, variance decreases. results become predictable. Predictability allows planning. Planning allows leverage. Leverage compounds output without additional effort. Without consistency, effort oscillates. High input is followed by collapse. With consistency, input remains within tolerance. Tolerance expands gradually. This expansion is subtle. It is not experienced emotionally. Tasks that once required effort become neutral. Neutral tasks require less energy. Energy is preserved. Preserved energy allows continuation under stress. Stress no longer dictates behavior. This produces separation between mood and action. When that separation holds, identity shifts. You stop identifying as someone who tries. You begin identifying as someone who executes. Execution becomes expected. Expectation reduces resistance. Lower resistance increases capacity. Capacity creates margin. Margin allows progress without urgency. Over long intervals, the gap widens. Inconsistent systems reset repeatedly. Consistent systems accumulate. The difference is not dramatic in weeks. It is decisive over years. Outcomes diverge quietly. No breakthrough occurs. No defining moment appears. The system simply continues. Consistency does not produce excitement. It produces trajectories. Trajectories determine position. Position determines options. Without consistency, options remain constrained. With consistency, options expand without force. This is not motivation-driven change. It is structural alignment. Alignment persists. That persistence is the long-term consequence.
Consistency is boring. That is not a weakness. That is the requirement. Systems that produce results do not entertain. They repeat. They remove choice. They remove evaluation. They remove emotion from execution. When emotion is removed, behavior stabilizes. When behavior stabilizes, outcomes compound. Most people search for engagement. Engagement is unstable. They search for motivation. Motivation fluctuates. Consistency ignores both. It continues without agreement. It continues without reward. It continues without confirmation. This indifference is misunderstood. Consistency is not passive, it is restrictive. It restricts deviation. It restricts adjustment. It restricts interference. Restriction creates order. Order enables accumulation. Accumulation is quiet. It does not announce progress. That silence causes doubt. Doubt causes interruption. Interruption resets the system. Those who continue do not feel ahead. They simply remain aligned. Alignment reduces resistance. Reduced resistance increases capacity. Capacity allows repetition without strain. Nothing dramatic occurs. Nothing changes in the moment. The system continues to function. That function produces results over time, not because it feels right, because it remains intact. Consistency does not inspire, it operates. Operation is enough. That is the rule. Repetition beats stimulation.